Welcome to Marina's Yarnharbor, a podcast about knitting and yarn. This is episode 6. Hello everyone, welcome to the Yarnharbor. If you're new here, my name is Marina. I'm a knitter in South Central Michigan, where I live with my husband and my 2 cats, and this is my podcast about knitting and yarn. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. It's nice to see you. I hope that you have been having an excellent, feels like a couple of months since I've posted last, but I hope you're doing good. This episode today is primarily going to be whips. Because my one finished object I don't have anymore. But let's start with what I'm wearing. Today I am not wearing anything knitted. However, I am wearing some very super cute teacup earrings that were gifted to me by my friend Daisy. She saw them and she thought of me, which I appreciate. I enjoy tea parties and I like fine china. Not that I have a lot of it by any stretch, but I am always up for high tea. So I thought these were just a lot of fun and that I'd share them. I don't know where she got them. If I knew that, I would tell you, but I don't. So anyway, that's what I'm wearing today. So finished objects. I finished up the Wrap Me Up sweater scarf by Knititude, and her name is... It's Knititude on Instagram, and I'm gonna make myself do this. Her name is Chantal, and her last name is Miyagishima. Chantal Miyagishima. And so she came up with this really fun pattern where you knit a sleeve on one end, and then you stretch it out. You stop knitting in the round, and then you knit flat, knit it for a very long time, and then you bring it back into the round and make another sleeve. This has already been sent off in the mail. I'll try and put some pictures up. This was this was knitted up for my cousin Astasia. She came up with a colorway because I had seen this pattern, and I told Astasia, I'm like, I've got to knit this. Like, this would be a great sample because it gives you enough length to show off color work, and especially for hand dyed yarn, just the what do I want to say here? Just the work that goes into getting those different color blends, whether or not you want it to pool on purpose or have speckles. And so it just is a really good vehicle. I feel like this project, the Wrap Me Up sweater scarf, is a really good vehicle to show off the intricacy of hand-dyed yarn. So I got that put together for her. And I have that already got sent off in the mail. I think I've said that like 5 times now. That already got sent off in the mail. Stasia has it. She's taking a couple pictures. If I can find them, I'll put them up so you guys can see how it turned out. I'm really happy with it. It was a very long knit. I fiddled with the pattern a little bit, and I think I talked about that in my last podcast around the cuff, because you are starting off with a rib, a 1x1 rib, and then when you go flat you end up having a border on the sides, and I was a little picky because it was asymmetrical, and so I fiddled with it until I got it where I wanted, and then that was actually really easy to adjust back down 1 stitch when you got back to knitting in the round on the other sleeve. That worked out great. It did take me a little longer than I think it normally would have if I had just followed the pattern. This was the first time, so I can't tell you how often people ask, how long did that take you? More often than not, I don't know, because I haven't been paying attention. I'm just knitting and having fun. So this time I tracked it. That piece, the Wrap Me Up sweater scarf, took me 60 hours a night. I think that's actually short of how long it actually did take, because I think I forgot to hit the timer a couple of times. So 60 hours sounds like a lot, but that was spread out. But yeah, I don't think we realize when we're knitting just how long we're spending on it, but it's worth it. I think it's worth it to have special garments or custom garments, or, you know, gifts that it's just a lot of time. But also for me, that time spent also helps me deal with anxiety. It's it's at this point, it's a comfort thing. If I don't have some knitting with me, then I'm a little anxious because I like knowing that I have the ability to just pull out a project and start working on it. So anyway, yeah, that took me much longer than I thought. And so that made me start to wonder about other projects I've done. But I don't think that putting a timer on it is necessarily, I mean, it's good to know, but also the time investment is worth it, at least in my personal opinion. So, and it's not like I'm not getting other stuff done. Not that I wouldn't love just to sit and knit all day, but I don't think my hands and my wrists and my elbow, they couldn't take it. So alas and alack, I don't think that I'll be allowed to do that. But anyway, yeah, the Wrap Me Up sweater scarf, really fun pattern, easy knit, great result, super versatile. I'm really glad that we did it, and I really like the colorway that Astasia came up with. I did have a couple moments where, because when you're knitting with hand-dyed yarn, you want to make sure you're alternating skeins so you don't end up with pooling. I did have a little bit of trouble going from the first 2 skeins to the second 2 skeins, but that was fixed pretty easily by just deciding where I was going to stop knitting with the previous skein and then knit it with the new one. So that took a little bit of fiddling and ripping out, but I think it was worth it, because what was happening is there were a couple spots through the middle where you'd end up with a harsh line, just like one or 2 lines of a really dark color, and it looked pretty obvious that was where things had shifted. So we addressed that. But no, overall, really fun knit. I definitely do recommend it. It's a great pattern. So on to works in progress, as I'm like, I don't just knit all the time. I've been knitting all the time. My first work in progress is my Zoysia wrap, which I've been working on for a while. I haven't made a ton of progress. I did realize I did something silly. I actually over knitted. I was just enjoying knitting so much that I knitted further than I needed to, which meant that I had to rip back to a point, which I tell you what, ripping back with this brush silk alpaca is a nightmare, because it's so fuzzy. It's so fuzzy and it sticks to itself. So what had happened was down here, I had knitted, I want to say, a good 2 or 3 inches past where I needed to. So I fixed that. And I had a moment too where I was a little confused by the directions about what it meant by from the cast on edge. I learned something important, because the next section is working on this neckband right here, this teeny little piece, for the cast on edge. Turns out the cast on edge is literally the edge, not this whole long edge. It is just the number of cast on stitches, and that's why you put your marker in the middle. And so this neckband here, and I found this out by checking out someone else's project on Ravelry, because I was really confused at first. It turns out that it stops here. This is the cast on edge for the left side of the neck, and then from the center marker over to right about yay, that is the other side of the neck. So it does not, because I had a moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to do this band all the way along this edge. No, just the cast on edge, which is literally the stitches you cast on, not your increases down the slope of the shoulder and the arm. And that's what my confusion was at first too, when I was measuring how long I needed to knit to, and it's from this cast on edge down, I think it's like 30.5 centimeters or something like that. But yeah, so still working on it, finishing up this neckband. I haven't taken this with me anywhere because I am fiddling with this part right now, and I know I'm gonna have to put these stitches on hold, and it's right now this is not a good travel piece, but I know it will be once I get through some of these structural parts. When I ripped out, I ended up looking up a tutorial, because I tell you what, trying to rip out like 3 inches of 3 inches of stocking knit on this yarn was really rough. I was going for it, and then I remembered that someone had said something about the freezer, and I was like, I don't know if I trust that. So I Googled it, I found a tutorial, I popped it in a Ziploc bag, popped it in the freezer for like 30 minutes, took it out. It was a dream. They were right. All the fibers contracted away, and it made it easier, much easier to get them all unattached to each other. So I'm really happy with the progress being made on this. I have some other things that are a little more, I hesitate to say interesting, but just kind of either closer to being done or are for somebody else. And so I'm like, well, this can wait a little bit. And I have to be honest, the fiddly neckband part is not exactly the most exciting. But anyway, this is coming along. I'm really happy with it so far. But one of those other projects that's getting a little bit more imperative / coming along a little more quickly is the sock set for my cousin's husband, Spencer. I have knit him socks before, and I think I've mentioned pretty much every podcast. I'm like, yeah, I should probably knit up some more socks for Spencer. Have I done it? Almost. I've started on them. So let me pull out the yarn. I am working on a pair of non-superwash socks for my cousin's husband, Spencer, for Spencer. We will be seeing them at the end of May. So I have a little bit of time to get it done, but I'm still kind of trying to push. So the main body of the sock, the main colorway is this, let's see here. Brown raw worsted yarns, the Cormo worsted yarn, and this is from the Mitchell wool. And I bought 2 50-gram skeins of this, and I knew that that alone would not be able to make socks for Spencer because his feet are gigantic. They're wide and they are long, and so I knew it wouldn't be enough. But I also remembered that I had some left over from his last pair of socks, some non-superwash wool from Sistari. This is 100% wool in natural medium gray. And so what I decided was, since I had these two colors, that I would make a stripy sock. And so I've already made it past the heel. I'm using a pattern, it's called, let's see here, Men's Sock Pattern for Big Luxurious Yarn by Candace Hunter, and I haven't been able to find it since I've downloaded it. I still have it on my phone, so that's why I pulled it up, but this is the same one I used last time. The pattern actually calls for a cuff about half this length, so I doubled the leg length because the cuff is the same, but the leg length. I doubled the leg length because he likes his socks a little bit taller. He usually wears them with boots. And instead of knitting this on a size 1.5 needle, which I feel like would be really tight, I'm actually using 3s, which I think is what I did last time as well. So I'm at a point where I think what I'm gonna do is continue the stripe. In fact, that is what I did. So there's a couple. Through the leg, the striping was easy, carrying the yarn, but through this gusset, was a little fussy, because I did the heel flap all in just brown, and then in this part here through the gusset, I had to clip the yarn for just the top, because I wanted to keep the heel all this brown color. And so there's going to be a couple sections through here where I need to go through and weave in some ends. But I think the result is going to be really nice. And then now, since I'm past that part, I'm just knitting the way I did before with it in the round. So it'll be striped all the way down the foot, which is going to be a little interesting because the bottom of the foot is knit, stocking knit. So it's just knit flat, whereas this has a rib pattern. I thought about what if I had done instead the rib, the stitch on this rib, done the stitches, the light gray, and then the purls, the knit stitches light gray, and then the purls brown, and then continued that like that, and then just had the bottom be brown. But I think this is going to be a little bit easier to knit and not as fiddly. And so this is actually, I'm pretty close to, I think from here we need about 53 more rows, and then we'll hit the toe. And then depending on what yarn I have more of, then I'll either do the toe in brown or I'll do the toe in the medium gray. But either way, I think it's turning out really good. And I don't know if he's gonna like the stripe, but I don't think he's really gonna care because it's just nice socks for hunting and fishing and all that fun stuff, because he does a lot of ice fishing and hunting and things. Through the spring and summer, he's pretty busy, so, well, and honestly, I wouldn't recommend a non-superwash sock in worsted weight for the summer. Your feet, you're going to sweat to death. But something I've discovered about non-superwash wool is there are definitely sometimes little bits and pieces of like plant material through the yarn. That's not my favorite thing to run into. However, you can't really argue with the fact that like the yarn still has a lot of its natural properties. I think they wear softer over time, and he really liked the socks from last time. So I was like, yeah, we'll just stick with the non-superwash. But I think they're great, especially for, I think it's, the yarn in particular is great for, like, the worsted anyway, for socks, for chunky socks for winter. I do know that both Sistari and Mitchell Wool have other yarn lines that are lighter weight and have less plant material in them, but I haven't experimented with them yet. Although, something I'm going to talk about in my next podcast is that I did go to the Spring Fiber Expo and got to see the Mitchell family again. And I did see some yarns there that looked like they'd be a lot of fun to knit something a little more delicate with, but that's just going to have to wait for a little bit because I've got a lot of other knitting to do. Let's see. After that, okay, so this next one's interesting. So I know yet another one that I've been talking about, that I've been working on forever, is the sweater for Steve. This is the Handsome Crisp Pullover by Karen S. She looked at the sweater from Knives Out and she reverse engineered it. So I've been knitting on this for quite some time. I decided that for gauge, it would be best if I used a 5. Well, here's the thing I ran into with this is, as I'm knitting this, it's hurting my hands really badly. It's very tight. It's not enjoyable. This is actually 2 needle sizes down from the recommended needle size. They recommend US 7s, and I've been using 5s, which meant that the ribbing down here, the twisted rib, is on 3s. So I've invested quite a bit of time in this piece, but the other problem is I don't think it's big enough. Even when I stretch it, like I told myself, oh, when you block it, you'll stretch it out. Let's be honest, that's probably not going to work. My husband right now is at least a 2X men's, probably closer to 3. We've got goals to, of course, who doesn't have goals to like get in shape and lose weight? But if that's the case, just with how long this is going to take me, it'll be like 3 years before it's done. So I was looking at it and I'm like, it is really pretty. I put a lot of time and effort into it. I don't want to rip it out, but I'm not sure that I want to keep going with it at this gauge. Don't get me wrong. The cables look really nice. The cables look really tight. And not too tight, but like well defined. This has been a lot of effort. However, I decided to give it a shot on the actual size that it's supposed to be. Oh, I'm in the middle of a row. And I'm not in a good spot either. Well, fine. Don't know why I did that to myself. But I decided to knit it at the gauge it's supposed to be at. And this is the result so far. And I feel like it looks just a little bit better. It's not as tight, that's true. Have I been doing those cables wrong? No, it's the wrong direction. I looked at it and I was like, oh no, I messed up my cables. If you compare sections to sections, first of all, the twisted rib was a little bit easier to do because this was on 5s. And then knitting this has not hurt my hands. I still have to be a little careful with the cabling and how I use my wrist when I cable, but it's not difficult. I'm not trying to tug stitches through, and that's a good thing. You can see, let me see if I can get it to be in a spot where I can hold both of them up. you can see kind of, I wonder if I can get it side by side, what I mean by that stitch definition. So this is on the actual gauge, this is on 7s, and then this is on the tighter one. And I can see that the tighter knit, yeah, that makes a tighter fabric, but it's gonna be too small. And like I said, it hurts my hands. Whereas this, I think, yeah, so this is the first time I'm actually sitting down and comparing them. The other thing too is I have spent so much time on the smaller gauge section. It takes me a long time to get through a row, whereas with this one, with the correct gauge, it's a lot faster. Actually, why don't I see if I can I'm just gonna knit through to the end of this row real quick so we can actually compare a little bit better, and I will speed it up. Okay, I have finished a row. And so now we can actually look at things and have them look like they make sense. So, okay. So here it is at gauge with the ribbing being on US size 4 needles and then the actual cabling being 7s. Now, it'll stretch a little when I block it. It is alpaca, but I feel like things are like I feel like the cables feel like they're the right size by comparison to, yeah, wow. By comparison to the other one, I wasn't sure because I had put in a lot of time on this one, on the smaller gauge. I'd put in a lot of time on that, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to rip it out. But now that I'm looking at them side by side, I'm looking at them with an actual eye for this comparison. I like the surprise. I like the one at gauge better. There were some people who had said that because of using the drops Nepal yarn, which is what I'm using, and it's worsted and not DK, that it worked out better for them at the smaller gauge, but they were also a lot smaller people. So that's something I'm immediately noticing, is I feel like this is actually probably going to fit my husband, whereas the other one currently won't. And I don't know actually if it ever would. He's not, even if he was at his thinnest, it still wouldn't be, I don't think it'd be quite right, because he's big boned. Just his frame I don't think would allow for it. And the idea for this sweater is that it is supposed to be oversized, which that's definitely not happening with the tighter gauge. The other thing being, and more importantly, I think the fact that like it hurts to knit it. I don't really want to spend time and energy on a knit that's just going to, essentially injure me, which I know that sounds funny, but that's kind of how I'm feeling. So I think, even though I like how tight the cable work is on the size, the one with the needle size smaller, I think that I'm going to rip it out. I think I'm going to rip it out and then use the yarn. The other thing too is yarn usage. I'm getting more, obviously because of the needle size, I'm getting more out of my yarn here, and this is eating up a lot of yarn, the tighter one. So, well, decision made on that one. So that's the progress I've been making on this. And actually, it's been a lot more fun to knit since I moved up a needle size. So unfortunately, learning the hard way that gauge does matter. So, if I can untangle myself from all the yarn, I'll move on to, as I just almost stabbed myself in the eye, move on to my final work in progress. Now, oh my goodness, hold on. My final work in progress is a Moonglade Tee by Row and Cades, also known as Kelly Menzies. She's a knitting friend of mine. I had purchased the pattern forever ago, and I actually purchased the yarn forever ago, but I think I mentioned it in my last podcast. I was a little worried to start work on it just in case I fluctuated sizes, but it's been a couple months and that hasn't happened. So I decided to just go for it. And I didn't really tell anybody that I was knitting on it. I haven't posted about it very much on Instagram or anything like that, other than my try on the other day. And that's mostly because I just got started on it, and then I was having so much fun knitting it that I just didn't want to share. I just wanted to knit it. So the yarn I'm using is from Adelaide Fiber Company. It's the color Moody Blues. And I think it's on their higher twist fingering weight base. I can't remember which base, and I don't have the ball band with me to tell me, or the label to tell me. So anyway, super, super pretty. Really enjoying it. I think it's gonna look really good once it's done. It's actually, like I said, I've tried it on a couple times and I really like it. The sleeves are just so romantic and soft, and I cannot wait to block these so that the lace really, so that you can really see the lace pattern. Now, something that was interesting is this is also the first time I've tried helical knitting, which is when you're switching back and forth between your two balls of yarn, because again, you want to do that with indie dyed yarn so you don't end up pooling. As you're switching back and forth between these two, instead of just switching back and forth and pulling the yarn forward in the back and having like a line, what you do is you end up 3 stitches before the last time you slip those 3 stitches, knit stitches, and then you pick up the other yarn and knit with it. Helical knitting is really cool. It definitely is best in the stocking knit sections, and I was kind of crazy and I started it after the short rows, which meant it was happening in these sleeves, and so there's definitely some sections where I had to fudge a little bit to get the helical knitting to work to get me through the lace sections. And actually the hardest part was down here toward the bottom. There was a lace, because these lace sections get really long, and so I was getting close to the edge and I'm like, I have to get like out of the lace before I close off for the sleeves. And so I did it. I was able to get back into the body. And so that way we didn't have any problems, but, it was close. I really like it though, because it means that I really can't see where the line is, in the middle of the back, which is where I probably would have put it. And so I think it's great. I think it's going to be a technique that I keep using, for other garments, but really, really love this. It's so soft. It's so soft. It's so pretty. The stitch definition is wonderful. I cannot wait to wear this garment. And I mean, the sleeves end up being cap sleeves, and this neckline is square, if you can't tell. And it's so flattering. I really like it. And it's really flattering on me. I really like it. But I can't wait until this lace is blocked. And so the other thing I'm excited for is right now I am going through the body. I've got, I want to say like 6 more centimeters until the next increase. And then I've got a couple more, and then I have to decide if I'm going to try and make it a little bit longer or if it's sitting just fine. If it's sitting nicely, then I'll probably just leave it. But if I need a little more length, I might knit a couple more inches, and see if maybe just an inch, because I don't know if I'm going to have enough yarn. But I'm excited for the lace portion at the bottom, because that's what's coming next, is a lacy portion at the bottom. So we will just have to see. But this is the one right now that is the push to get done. There is a festival coming up at the end of this month that I'd like to be able to wear this to, because the indie dyer with Adelaide Fiber Company, whose name I know but can't remember right now. I'll flash it on the screen because I'm a terrible friend. I really want to be able to bring this and show her, because it's just so good. It's just so good. Anyway, that is the final work in progress that I am trying to truck along on. That leads us into project planning. I still have plans for the sheer V sweater. We're just waiting on the mohair in the color Sherlock. The plan for that is I'm going to knit it, and then it's probably going to spend some time in the yarn store, and then I should have it back for late winter, early spring next year. My cousin and I have some plans for a yarn box coming up, and so I think the plan is like one big skein and then a couple. I don't know if she wants to do 5 or 6 minis, but that's kind of the plan. So with that in mind, we're looking for shawl patterns that would make a good use of one main color and several minis. I do have plans to knit up the Alice Muriel hood shawl cowl thing again, because it's just going to go nicely with the theme. So yeah, if you guys know of any shawl ideas that could really make good use of like a 400 yard main skein, and then some minis that are at like 20 grams, which I think is like 80 something yards for Astasia's yarn, let me know. Link them in the comments, or send me a message on Instagram. It's not like I haven't been scouring too, but you know, I want to tap into the internet brain that might have some better ideas than what I found. So if you happen to know of any, please go ahead and let me know. But yeah, so projects they're kind of vague, but like I said, I've obviously got a lot on my knitting plate right now, so I'm okay. Goodness knows that after my cousin and I get to hang out in person, I am sure there's going to be, we're gonna fill up this project planning section. Acquisitions. I have bought some things. However, I purchased them at the Spring Fiber Expo, so I don't really want to talk about them on this podcast because I'm going to do a separate episode for that, hopefully sooner rather than later, because I'm already using some of the things that I purchased. That brings me to our final section for today, which is Instagram inspo. And this, unlike past sections here, I don't have 3 particular garments or 3 particular knitted items that I'm thinking about. In this one, I just recently found Fable Knitwear. So I'm only going to talk about this one designer real quick. I'll probably talk about a couple of her designs that I think look really good. So Fable Knitwear, her name is Helene. I think it's Helene or Helene. She's from Norway, so I'm probably ruining it. Helene Arnesen. She owns and is the designer behind Fable Knitwear. Right now, she is on maternity leave because she just had a little baby. But I was scrolling through her Instagram because I found, I think it was because I was looking for a knitted top for myself. And I can't remember if it was the Poet shirt. I think so. No, the Oxford jumper. So the Oxford jumper is super, super cute. It's got a high neckline. It's cropped, but it's got giant poofy sleeves that end right about the elbow. But then they've got about the forearm is like just knitted 1 by 1 rib. So that one is really, really pretty. But then also the library sweater, I do believe. No, the bibliothèque blouse. Oh my goodness. So that is inspired by Belle from Beauty and the Beast, the library scene. And you can see it in the pattern because of the way the ribbing hugs the body. And then it's got a little tiny puff cap at the top. And then it's long sleeved. And it is super, super cute. I really, really like it. And I'm just wondering if maybe that shouldn't be the one that I knit with my yarn that I've got. The problem is that it's DK weight and not fingering. So that one's just added to my list. There were some others that were really, really fun. She's got a Gibson ruffle blouse that just throws me back to Anne of Green Gables and Road to Avonlea and Tales of Avonlea. And it's just so stinking cute. All of her stuff is really, like, it's dramatic, but it's romantic and it's soft. And what I really appreciate is that even though most of her sizes only go up to about 135 centimeters in the bust, that's like 53 inches in the bust, that's still really, really, really good. Just even as a baseline. But beyond that, she has pretty much on her Ravelry page for any pattern, she has it available that if you are a larger size and the larger size isn't showing up, she'll send you the pattern to test knit it. Because I think she has most of her garments are scaled so that they can go larger. It's just that she didn't have anyone to test, and I don't think she felt comfortable. And this is an assumption, but I don't think she felt comfortable putting out the pattern if it hadn't been tested. And so, still though, to go up to like, because I could knit most of her stuff depending on how much ease it has. But I really appreciate that because as a plus size knitter, it can be really challenging to find patterns that are cute or that have a structure that also will fit. I can't tell you how many times I've run into patterns where they're like, oh yeah, we go up to 3XL, and it's like a 40 something bust, and I'm just like, That's not 3XL, guys. Like, no, I'm really sorry. It's nope. But not her. She has made sure to be as inclusive as possible, which I really, really appreciate. But I highly suggest you go and check her out. She's not exactly a newer designer by any means, nor is she a smaller designer. She currently has like 58,500 followers, but that's okay. I don't mind that. I know that I would like to try and feature some more smaller designers, but the fact that she has such pretty things that are available in so many sizes, I think it really recommends her. It makes me want to recommend her. So that is who I am inspired by right now. I'm definitely looking at her patterns, trying to figure out what yarn I've got, trying to plan for, you know, this coming year. I mean, we're in the middle of it now. We're in the middle of spring, but like my brain says fall when I'm thinking knit stuff. So this coming fall season, even heading into next year, what might be on my knitting plate. I definitely, there's some in garments. There's this one top that I keep seeing. It's the Giselle blouse. Oh, it's just so cute because it's fitted. It's like a fitted tank top and it's cropped, but you probably could knit it larger. And then the sleeves, I'm pretty sure the sleeves are knit with like mohair silk, but they're just big and drapey and poofy and ruffly, and oh, I love it. I know that might be a little much, but I can't help myself. So anyway, that is my Instagram inspiration for now. Yeah, so quite a couple of months of knitting. I know that I haven't been super regular. I'm working on it, but honestly, it's hard when I don't feel like I have anything that I feel like I don't have anything to show you. So now I do. Now I have. I can't wait to actually show you the finished Moonglade Tee. I think it's going to be gorgeous. I will keep you up to date on Steve's sweater. Once Spencer's socks are done, then I'll show you those. And then obviously the Zoysia wrap. And then anything else I start, I'll talk with you about. But maybe I'll film a reel of ripping out the other cable sweater that I'd started on. I don't know. It would make Steve cry, but it might be fun. Anyway, thank you for hanging out with me today. I hope that you are having a good one. If you are so inclined, like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, all that fun, YouTube stuff. If you don't feel like it, that's fine too. Anyway, when you get a chance, go ahead and hop over and visit me over on Instagram. I'm working on being more active there, but man, the last couple months have been crazy. So yeah, that's usually where my quick and dirty updates are, instead of just, the podcast feels more formal, kind of, but not entirely. So anyway, yeah. So, man, I never know how to end these well. I'm supposed to have some sort of like call to action, be a little catchy, be a little interesting, and instead I'm just like, okay, this was fun. So anyway, yeah, have a good day. Bye.